Hello everyone, good morning. Today is 27th of September and welcome to the Hindu newspaper analysis discussion. So guys, in the video, we are going to discuss the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper. We'll discuss the articles with the background as well as the way forward of the articles we'll also see. Now, before starting, I would like to tell you that you can download the explainer PDF from the Telegram channel. Okay, this PDF contains all the synoptic notes of the articles that had come. Okay, so you can download it and the link for the Telegram channel has been given in the description box in the YouTube. Moreover, you can go to the Telegram and search Thinking Palette by Sahil. There also you can search it. Now, let's start with the discussion of all the articles, but before that, let's see the Hindu newspaper so that you can understand that which articles are important for our exam. Now, here we have the page number 1 and the first page. Team Gehlot in the wrong says Congress CM denies role in revolt. So this is the political issue going on into the state of Rajasthan. Not very much important for the examination. Moving on, after that other political issues etc. have been given. Now here, this is an important article. It talks about the Navik system which the government is promoting and how it's creating the problem for the mobile manufacturers. Okay, all those things we'll see there. Then the city section, okay, the city section, the political issues, tenders, advertisements and all these kind of things have been given. Not important for the examination, so we'll be skipping it. Okay, and the political articles etc. that has been given. Okay, that's not very much important. Here the 10% reservation is fraud on the constitution, says Justice Chandru. We'll see this particular article because there is one more article on the reservation issue that has come, so we'll see these things. Then moving on, after we reach to the editorial page. The first article talks about putting power back in the hand of people. So this article talks about that how the democracy is right now facing certain issues that we'll see. Then pitching India as a signature destination. So this is a very good article, a 5-star article on the tourism sector, a very good article. We'll see this article entirely. Then home and abroad. So this article talks about the recent Minister of External Affairs visit to the UNGA, the 77th session that has been held. So we'll see this particular article also. I will analyze that. Then moving on, turning inward. So here we find this particular thing that the far right political parties are coming more in the power in the Europe. Then Samarkand, a miniature of an emerging world. So in the Samarkand, recently what have happened, the SU meet has happened. So there, what world order is emerging, that was witnessed. We'll see this entire article. After that, Virat Kohli's prolonged century drought is no exception. Now the article doesn't contains the UPSC relevant substance. Okay, so no need to go into this article for UPS for our exam. Then text and the context page, a push for the semiconductor industry. We'll see this particular article as what it's talking about. Find why has the state funeral for Shinzo Abe divided the Japan. Okay, so there are the conflicts etc. that are happening on this particular line. Then moving on. After that, the landslides in Pettimudi. Okay, now this particular article is talking about the landslide into the Kerala that came. Okay, so all the details, how many workers died and all those kind of things are talked about. This article is more literary in the, it has been written into the literary sense. Okay, then moving on, videos on 10 YouTube channels blocked. Now see, you don't need to go and see that which channels got blocked, which videos got blocked, but here the basically IT rules of 2021 and the section 69A of the IT Act, under which the government gets such kind of a power, that becomes important. We'll see this particular entire issue. Then moving on, after that, Modi leaves for Japan for Shinzo Abe's funeral. Okay, then OBCs not onto the central list can apply under the EWS. Okay, so we'll see what this article is talking about. Then the page number 11, all the political articles have been carried here. These political articles are not important for your examination. Then after that, here we can see this thing, that live streaming online RTI portal, Supreme Court takes big steps onto the transparency. We'll see what this article is talking about. Okay, then going on to the world page. So 11 children among 15 dead into the Russian school shooting. Okay, a party with the neo-fascist brothers of Italy set to form the next government. Now see this thing, that when we talk about the world page, okay, such kind of a things that okay, an attack happened, a shooting happened, okay, or the law and order, or the basically Ukraine-Russia war that is going on, the day-to-day developments, you are not required to track that thing. Okay, one thing. Moreover, the political, for example, the formation of government in Italy. Okay, these political internal matters of the countries fine, which don't have direct impact onto the India, those articles are not required for our examination. Fine. Cuba grants note to same-sex marriage in unusual referendum. So we find this particular thing, that the Cuba has allowed the same-sex marriages. Okay. Now, when we talk about India, what's the status of same-sex marriages in India? Okay, that is something that I'll tell you. Fine, you don't need to go in internals of Cuba, that okay, what law they have changed, etc. But when we talk about India, you understand this particular thing, that section 377 in India, the section 377 in the IPC, you might be knowing it, it criminalized the homosexuality. Okay, now what has happened? Supreme Court has come with the Navtej Singh Johar judgment, Navtej Singh Johar case. And after this Navtej Singh Johar judgment, section 377 has been decriminalized. So now the homosexuality is not a crime. But at the same time, are they allowed to get married? No. Right now, there is the petition that is lying in to the Delhi High Court, which says that under the Special Marriage Act, even the homosexual couples should be allowed to get married. But as of now, center government has not given a favorable reply. Moreover, as of now, it's not happening. But in Cuba, same-sex marriages have been allowed. Okay, then coming to the business page. Okay, so Sensex slides 1.6%. Okay, that issue is going on. Recently we have seen also this particular thing, that why the rupee is declining. So the entire story from 2020 onwards, the FPI, etc., we have seen this thing. But the Sensex going down 1.6%, Nifty going down by these many points, not important for the examination. Center defers the new foreign trade policy. Now, if you remember, just a couple of days back, we have seen this particular article that by the week that went by, the foreign trade policy was to be announced. Already foreign trade policy is delayed by 2 years. Okay, the earlier foreign trade policy that we have was for 2015 to 2020. It got extended to 2 years, that is 2022. Now the new foreign trade policy was expected. Okay, but that particular thing has been deferred for the another 6 months, that is by March 2023. March 2023, the new foreign trade policy will be coming. So I told you that when it will come, we'll see this particular thing, but now it has been delayed. Okay, so after 6 months, we'll see that. Okay, now moving on, Apple iPhone will be manufactured in India, and then the sports page we have. Now let's discuss all the relevant articles that are important for our examination in much more details, one by one. Let's start. Now, in every class, I give you a GS quotation. Now, these quotations can be used directly in your answers. Okay, so today we'll take the quote from Mahatma Gandhi. So, Gandhiji says that rich must live more simply so that the poor may simply live. Okay, this is a very impactful quote. Again, I'll repeat, rich must live more simply so that poor may simply live. Now, understand this thing. I just wanted to explain you one additional idea so that you can make more sense of this quotation. That is the trusteeship theory. That is the theory of trusteeship given by Gandhiji. Now, Gandhiji says this thing, that if you have wealth, you should not behave as the owner of that particular wealth. Rather, you should behave as a trustee of that wealth, that the wealth has been given to you in the public trust, and that wealth is to be used to remove the miseries of the people, to feed the hungry people. That wealth is to be used to remove the injustices. So don't behave as the owner of the wealth, rather behave that you are holding the wealth into the trust of the common people. So therefore, extravagant lifestyles, okay, such kind of things should be avoided, and poor people needs to be provided more and more opportunities so that their basic dignities can be fulfilled. Okay, so this is a very impactful idea. Moreover, if you see this particular thing, the inequalities in the world have increased, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic. We got more billionaires, but at the same time, more people went under the extreme poverty. That is something that's happening. So, rich people should take an ethical responsibility. This idea can be used in GS4 paper of ethics. GS4 paper of ethics. Now, moving on. A push for the semiconductor industry. Okay, now this article will be important first of all in GS paper number 3. This article will be important in GS paper number 3, economic reforms, okay, to boost the manufacturing sector in India. Fine. So this entire issue we'll see here. First of all, why this issue has come now in the news. So recently, government has brought certain changes in its production linked incentive scheme that was expected to give boost to the semiconductor chip manufacturing in India. Okay, so let's discuss this article. First of all, what are the semiconductors? What are the semiconductors? Now you know this thing that see, today any electronic equipment you are using, any device you are using, your mobile phone, your tablets, there are the semiconductor chips which are the core, which are the critical electrical equipment in all these kind of devices. So semiconductors, these are the thumbnail sized building blocks of every modern electronic device. Now you see this thing that we are moving towards the internet of things, we are moving towards the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, and in this particular thing, more and more connected world will be finding, and as the connected world will be there, we need more of these semiconductor chips. So when we talk about these chips, they give the computational power to device, it gives the computational power to device. So for example, even if you talk about the cars, now cars need a lot of computing for many number kind of things. So even in the cars, these semiconductor chips are used. Today when we talk about the world, as we are getting more and more connected devices, electronic devices, this semiconductor industry right now is valued at around 500 to 600 billion dollar. Now, when we talk about these semiconductor chips have a thin layer of silicon. Now this thin layer of silicon, okay, it is etched, okay, it's connected with billions of microscopic transistors. Okay, so a chip, semiconductor chip, looks like a thumbnail sized kind of a thumbnail sized building block. It has billions and billions of microscopic transistors. They form particular patterns, and by these particular patterns, the flow of current, the flow of commands, computational instructions, it flows. So these semiconductor chips are very much important. Now when we talk about the semiconductor chips, making these chips is highly complex, because I told you that billions, I told you this particular thing, that there are the billions of the microscopic transistors that are to be placed on one chip. So their placement, their pattern, their design, it is a very complicated process. Fine. Now it has multiple steps. When the semiconductor chip is to be made, there are multiple steps. For example, okay, there is supply chain. Okay, there is a supply chain. The components for the silicon chips are to be arranged. For example, I told you silicon. Okay, that is to be arranged. After that, IP rights. Fine, when you make a semiconductor chip, that particular semiconductor chip is to be patented so that it can be used for a particular purpose. So IP rights are to be taken. Fine, chip fabrication machines are to be made. Now for making the chips, you first need to make the chip fabrication machines. So that is to be made. After that, the factories are to be established. ATMP, assembly of these chips, testing of these chips, whether these chips are performing their dedicated function or not, marking, packaging, all these kind of functions are the part of the semiconductor chip manufacturing. Now when we talk about the semiconductor chip manufacturing, there are some of the countries which are the major producers of these semiconductor chips. Which countries we have? So Taiwan, South Korea and USA, okay, along with the China also. These are some of the biggest players into the chip manufacturing. Now understand this particular thing, that what happened 2020. You know this particular thing, that the pandemic started and the lockdown was imposed in many of the countries. Now as the lockdown got imposed, what happened? These semiconductor manufacturing plants, semiconductor chip manufacturing factories, they were shut down for many months. And at that point of a time, we see that in 2020 there was record demand of personal computers, mobiles, laptops, tablets. Why? Because of the work from home phenomena that came. Okay, so at the same time, what happens? New chips are not getting manufactured, and the demand of the devices which have the chips embedded in that, it's increasing. So what happened? Chip shortage started to come in 2020. Okay, and after that we find that the post-pandemic recovery also has happened. The vehicle sales, they are coming at the pre-pandemic level, and when we talk about the vehicles, the modern cars, okay, they have multiple hundreds of the chips fitted in that. So right now there is the shortage of the chips, and as world will become more connected, there will be more and more demand. Right now this industry is a 500 to 600 billion dollar. Now the countries, what they are doing, they are trying to make their own, they are trying to develop their own capabilities to manufacture these chips. Now understand this thing. For example, India came out with the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan in 2020. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, we want to make the self-reliance. We want to make the self-reliance. And as electronic equipments will be a very important component into the modern economies, even into the chip manufacturing, we want to achieve the Atmanirbharta. And not only the India, other countries are also trying to become self-reliant in this particular sphere. For example, USA announced $52.7 billion government funding for the Chips and the Science Act, in which the economic support will be provided to the chip manufacturers so that they can enhance their production capabilities. After that, European Union had come out with the Chips Act, and in this Chips Act, 43 billion euros we see that are being mobilized for the public and into the form of the public and the private investment for the chip manufacturing. Okay, so that is something that is going on. Now, as all the world countries are taking the initiatives, India has also brought certain changes into the chip manufacturing. Now, what has happened? First of all, understand, when we talk about India, according to the Ministry of Electronics and IT, it's being said that the semiconductor demand in India only would go to 70 to 80 billion dollar by 2026, because the digital devices, electronic products, mobile phones, tablets, electronic watches, e-watches, all these things, the demand is increasing. Now, but do we have the capacity to manufacture our own semiconductor chips? We don't have much capacity. So government announced a $10 billion production linked incentive scheme. Now, in terms of rupees, it was nearly 76,000 crore rupees scheme. Now, what will happen in this particular scheme? It is a production linked incentive scheme. What will happen? Over the incremental, just a minute, incentives will be provided. Incentives will be provided for the incremental sales, for the incremental manufacturing. Now, what this incremental sale, incremental manufacturing means, very simply I'll tell you. Suppose there is an XYZ company, in the first year it has done a sale of 100 crore rupees. In second year, it has done the sale of 150 crore rupees. Now, this 50 crore rupees, it is an incremental sale. Or when we talk about the incremental manufacturing, so it can be the case that in first year they manufactured the product worth rupees 100 crore, in second year they manufactured it worth rupees 150 crore. So this additional, that is the incremental sale, or you can call it as incremental manufacturing. So what happens for the incremental manufacturing? Thus incentives will be provided under the production linked incentive schemes. There are many sectors for this, for which the PLI scheme has come. If you remember, just a few days back I have discussed this PLI scheme separately also. So right now many sectors, automobile sector, semiconductor chip manufacturing, fine, they are under the PLI. Now, what government has provided? Government has provided that for the production will be providing support. Moreover, for the semiconductor, government has also come out with the DLI, that is the design linked incentive scheme. Now, you know this thing that for the making of the semiconductor chips, a lot of research and development is to be done. Designing a chip is also a very big kind of a task. So basically government will provide the support so that the investment can come into the designing of the software, fine, designing of the software, designing of the chips, all these kind of things. Now, when we talk about the production linked incentive scheme for the chip, for the semiconductor chips, here government is also providing the capital support. Here the government is also providing the capital support. What's the capital support? It means that if any person wants to start a chip manufacturing plant, the initial cost of establishing that particular plant, the cost that will come in making the infrastructure, for acquiring the machinery, so the basic the cost that will be incurred for establishing a plant, government will contribute in that. Now, what was the earlier scheme and what are the now changes that had come? First of all, let's understand the earlier provisions with respect to the capital support that is being given. Now, previously, government provided that 30% of the project cost will be given by the government for 45 nanometer to 65 nanometer of the chip production. So suppose you want to make a chip plant and your plant is 100 crore, your plant's establishing cost is 100 crore rupees. So 30%, that is 30 crore rupees will be provided by the government if you are making the chips of 45 nanometer to 65 nanometer. 40% of the project cost will be given by the government if 28 nanometer to 45 nanometer chips are being made, and 50% or half of the project cost will be given by the government if 28 nanometer or below chips are being manufactured. Okay, so this was the thing that was there. So different kind of capital supports for different kind of semiconductor chips was being given by the government. Now government has modified the scheme, and government says this thing that the 50% of the fiscal support, 50% of the project support will be given by the government for all the types of chips, for all the nodes. Okay, so this difference which was there, that 45 nanometer to 65, 28 nanometer to 45, that has now been removed. Any kind of semiconductor chip plant you want to make, 50% of the project cost will be given by the government. This is the new change that has come. Now moreover, understand this particular thing, even for the ATMP, that is, I have just explained you here, ATMP, that is the assembly, testing, marking and packaging. Any kind of work you are doing for the chip manufacturing, you will be provided the support. Now many of the foreign companies has also shown the interest in that particular thing, and the Vedanta and the Taiwanese chip maker, that is the Foxconn, they have signed an MOU with the government, and 1,54,000 crore rupees semiconductor chip plant will be established into the Gujarat. So this scheme is showing the benefits, and the FDI also has started to come. So that is something which is good. Okay, now what are the challenges? Okay, so we have come out with a 76,000 crore rupees scheme. Is it the sufficient? Now number one, that this scheme is encouraging, but you understand that actually we need to provide more and more funding. Chip manufacturing, it is a very expensive process. If we talk about the cost of establishing one semiconductor chip manufacturing plant, the cost comes at around $3 to $7 billion. And what is the size of our entire scheme? We are running the scheme of $10 billion. $10 billion, and to make one plant it takes $3 to $7 billion. So how will be able to support the multiple plants throughout the country only within the $10 billion? So we need to provide more and more funding. Now if you see that, if you see the size, the USA has announced the $52 billion support. Okay, European Union has provided 43 billion euro support, 43 billion euro support. Now obviously India might not be having the economic capacity as of US and the European Union, but still, if we want to seize this moment, we need to enhance this funding in the near future. That's the one. Then the second challenge that will come, is that, see, this is a very practical problem, that when we talk about the chip manufacturing, it needs a lot of ultra pure, ultra distilled water. Okay, now to get ultra distilled, ultra pure water, a large amount of normal water is first needed. Now the question comes that will government be able to provide such big amount of water when we are facing so much of the water crisis right now? As per the Niti Aayog's Composite Water Management Index, as per the Niti Aayog, India, 60% of India comes under the water stress category. Moreover, you see this particular thing, that when we talk about the plant has been established into the Gujarat, okay, that is the 1,50,000 crore rupees agreement has been signed, an MOU has been signed, and a plant will be established into the Gujarat. So question comes that how the water will be provided. It might have the environmental cost. Moreover, if the groundwater will be withdrawn, that might impact the groundwater table also. So environmental issues will be there. Then the third issue that comes here is that basically we are giving the production. I told you the production linked incentive scheme is being given. The support will be provided, subsidy will be provided, even for establishing the plant, the subsidy is being provided. Now we are providing this particular thing from the taxpayers' money. Now the question comes is like this, that government needs to create such a strategy that even when government will not give subsidy after 5 years, 6 years, then also these chip manufacturing plants should be viable. Okay, so they should not become completely dependent onto the government subsidy, government support. For example, that right now they are being given the subsidy, so they are viable, but later they don't stay viable. That should not happen. So government should plan this entire thing in a very smart kind of manner. Okay, so this is guys all about the semiconductor industry in India. So you see that in this particular article, we have seen all the dimensions of the semiconductor. First of all, we have seen the science and technology dimension. We have seen the science and technology dimension. After that, we have seen the economic potential of this particular industry, okay, that it costs, its value is 5 to 600 billion dollar. We have seen the efforts taken by the another countries. We have seen the potential into the India. We have seen the scheme that government has come out with, the PLI and DLI. Okay, now you see, if a question comes in the, see, question will not come that, okay, explain the PLI scheme for semiconductor manufacturing. Question might be something like this, that what are the initiatives that government has taken to tap the manufacturing potential in India. There you will be writing about the semiconductor chip. So please mention the words such as the PLI and the DLI, design linked. Okay, then we have seen the new changes that had come, and finally we have seen the challenges that had come. Okay, so guys, this particular handout that has been there, please make sure that either you download it or important points you note down in your notebooks. Now we'll move to the next article. Okay, the next article, centers push for Navik system lands smartphone giants on unknown road. Okay, so what this particular entire issue is all about, what the Navik is all about, we'll see this thing from the very scratch. Now this article will be important for GS paper number 3, science and technology. Okay, within that the topic of Navik, we'll see this. Okay, now see, basically you know this thing that we use the maps for day to day, for many of the day to day things. Okay, for example, even when the Swiggy person delivers your food, that Swiggy person needs the Google Maps. Okay, when you are traveling to some particular place, you need Google Maps. Okay, so the maps, they serve a practical utility into the present time. Now when we talk about, guys, the Google Maps, for example, Apple Maps that you are having, they are based on to the GPS, that is the global positioning system. GPS, global positioning system. Now this global positioning system, it is the US setup. It is a US setup which is based on 25 satellites, and on that particular basis the information is provided. So today we are using GPS for our map related purposes, which is a US established setup. Now understand this particular thing, that India wants to become Atmanirbhar. And even in this particular capacity, we want that we should have our own setup by which the navigation can be helped. Okay, so we came out with the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, that is IRNSS. And as per this Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, we want to establish our own GPS system, our own map-based system onto the lines of the GPS of the USA. Now this Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System was developed by the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, and its wing. Within the ISRO, its commercial wing, it's called as Antrix. So ISRO and Antrix has developed this IRNSS. Now this IRNSS has actually been renamed to Navik by the Prime Minister in 2016. So first of all, the Navik and IRNSS, they are same, not the different. Now what actually happens under the Navik or the IRNSS? So it is a system which consists of the 8 satellites. Okay, these 8 satellites are located at 36,000 kilometer above the earth. Okay, right now the 7 satellites out of these 8 satellites are active. Now the 3 satellites are based into the geostationary orbit, and the 5 satellites are placed into the inclined geosynchronous orbit. Okay, so when we talk about the geostationary orbit, it is placed above equator, and when we talk about the geosynchronous orbit, okay, it is placed at a particular inclination. Now that inclination we can decide as per our need. Now these particular 8 satellites will provide the navigation data for the India as well as region extending up to 1500 kilometer beyond Indian mainland. So the countries such as the Nepal, countries such as Bhutan, Pakistan, they will also come under the radar of the Navik, which is based on to these 8 satellites which are providing the real-time navigation related information. Now what's the purpose? How this Navik can be used? It can be used for the terrestrial, aerial and marine navigation. So terrestrial navigation, if you go in your car, you can use the Navic, basically the navigation or the maps that is provided by Navic. Aerial navigation in the flights it can be used, marine navigation into the ships it can be used. Okay, in the disaster management, okay, this particular these satellites can provide the navigation relation. Okay, vehicle tracking, fleet management, vehicle tracking. Now you see this particular thing that now government is coming for the scheme that for example, public transportation buses will be fitted with the vehicle tracking devices. Now you see this particular thing, I'll give you one very practical kind of an example. We always say this thing that when the food is being transported from the Food Corporation of India's go down to the state governments, so that that food can be given to the poor people from their public distribution system, many of the food gets diverted. The trucks, they divert the food, and that food is sold into that food grains are sold into the open market. So basically even the trucks carrying the food grains will be fitted with these GPS system, Navic based systems, and we can know that whether they have diverted from their path or not. So for the vehicle tracking they can be used, transportation purpose they can be used, they can be integrated with the mobile phones. Okay, then the precise timing, okay, okay, the for identifying the precising timing for the power grids, okay, all these kind of things can be used. Okay, now when we talk about the India, the Prime Minister has talked about making the self-reliance India and has provided that we should use our own Navic system for the navigation purposes, and the reliance on to the GPS of USA etc. should not be there. So Union government has provided this thing that dependence on to the foreign systems such as the US GPS should not be there. Moreover, we have India had said that this thing that countries such as China, European Union, Japan, Russia all have their own regional navigation systems which are rival of the GPS of the USA. So as the China, European Union, Japan, Russia are all having their own regional navigation systems, India should also have its own regional navigation system, and we got it, that is the Navic. Okay, now but you know this thing that mobile phones are still using the GPS, so therefore now Union government is pushing that the technological giants, smartphone manufacturers, find the companies such as the Samsung, Xiaomi, Apple, they should fit their mobile devices with the Navic based system, not on the GPS but the Navic based system. Now these mobile phone manufacturers, they are fearing that it might bring elevated cost. Fine, why? Because the hardware changes are now needed. Okay, so hardware changes will be needed. Now whether this particular thing is good or whether this particular thing is not good, you need to understand that it has both positives as well as negatives. When we talk about positives, it is very much sure. Now see, when the Kargil war was going on, at that point of a time, when India was dependent onto the USA for the navigation related services, we found that it can actually be a vulnerability. Into the times of crisis, USA might refuse to cooperate with the India. That futures are very much uncertain. So in order to have our own homegrown regional navigation system, it is very much important into the name of national interest. Okay, so we need it. But at the same time, see, right now when we talk about India's manufacturing sector, we are inviting the Apple, Samsung, Foxconn to India, that you come in India. Okay, India is a very big mobile market, but if such kind of a compliances will be imposed, it might not give the positive signals and it might be counterproductive. So these are the issues that had come. Okay, now understand one more thing, that this Navic in itself can be important for the prelims examination also. So all those dimensions we have seen it. Moreover, if we do a comparison between the Navic and GPS, understand that actually the GPS, it is based on 25 satellites, Navic is based on to the 8 satellites, but still the Navic is more accurate than the GPS. The accuracy of GPS is up to 20 to 25 meters, but the Navic's accuracy is at 5 meter. Okay, so to 5 meter accuracy, that locations can be pinpointed. So the Navic is more precise. Fine. So this is something that India wants to now promote, the use of Navic. That is the entire issue that has come. It's clear. So now we'll move to the next article. Okay. Videos on 10 YouTube channel blocked for the hate speech center. Now you don't need to go and see that okay, the blocked videos, they had viewership of 1.3 crore, okay, and which channels got blocked, why, what type of videos were shown, that is not important. But academically what is important, we need to understand that how or what provisions government is using to block the social media content. Does government has power in that particular direction or not? So in this particular direction we'll see with respect to the GS paper number 2, GS paper number 2, okay, social media regulations, GS paper number 2. Fine, we'll see this particular article. Now, first of all, if you are following the newspaper analysis regularly, or even if you are not following the newspaper, earlier you were not following, what happened in 2021, government had come out with the information technology intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics code rules 2021. We have discussed it in much detail when this particular new IT rules 2021 were passed. So right now the government has blocked these YouTube videos by using this same IT rules of 2021. Now, what is this IT rule of 2021? I'll tell you in a nutshell. So basically these IT rules of 2021 aims to control three things. Number one, they aim to control social media intermediaries. Okay, social media intermediaries, for example, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Okay, so social media intermediaries. Second, it aims to control the OTT platform, over the top. For example, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar, Disney Hotstar. So the OTT platforms, and the third is other digital media and digital news. These three things, these IT rules 2021 will regulate, it will control. Now let's see that what are the rules within this. So first of all, when we talk about the rules for the social media, these new IT rules of 2021, they provide that number one, there need to be tighter timelines to take down unlawful content and assist the law enforcement. For example, the Ministry of Home Affairs asks the YouTube that a particular XYZ channel is containing the information which is not in interest of the national interest, then that video is to be taken down. Okay, so in very short timelines, it should not happen that okay, after 6 months they will take down the video. So tighter timelines to take down the unlawful content. Okay, they have to assist the law enforcement agencies. One. Secondly, identify the first originator of a message that cause identified offense. Now many a times you get the WhatsApp messages, you spread that WhatsApp message to many people, and let's say sometimes that WhatsApp message was a fake message and it incited a riot, it incited some kind of a public trouble. Okay, now if a person has sent that WhatsApp message, that person might not be the creator of that message, that person might not be the originator of that message, the person. Okay, so let's say this person forwarded a WhatsApp. Now this person is not originator, this person received it from somebody else, this person received from somebody else, this person received from somebody else. So the social media intermediaries, even the WhatsApp will come here, they need to help identify that who was the first originator. Same in the case of Facebook post, same into the case of YouTube videos. So who was the original creator, that thing is to be identified. After that, there will be the stricter rules for the bigger platforms. So big social media intermediaries, now it has identified the significant social media intermediaries and the minor social media intermediaries. So big ones, they will have given more compliance. Voluntary user verification mechanism. So who is using the Facebook, YouTube, their KYC is to be done. So these are the regulation, these are the rules for the social media. Then second comes, it's for the digital media and the OTT platforms. Okay, so number one, the OTT, they need to go for self-regulation and self-classification of their content. For example, there are certain web series which contain offensive language, which contain some abusive language. Okay, so they need to categorize that okay, this content is adult, this content is universal, this in this kind of a content, if you want to see parental advice or parental discretion is needed. So their content they have to classify what is adult, what is underage, what is universal, all that certifications they need to give. After that, it has been provided that 3-tier grievance redressal mechanism needs to be there. Okay, every OTT company, they need to have a grievance redressal mechanism. For example, there is a web series which you think might hurt the religious sentiments, you can raise the complaint. Okay, so the grievance redressal mechanism needs to be there. Now this particular code of ethics, now this is for the digital media houses. Okay, so the digital media, digital news, they need to have a code of ethics and they need to follow that. Okay, digital news media, they will subject to the traditional media rules, traditional media compliances. So the traditional media, for example, a newspaper is there, whatever compliances are there on that, onto the digital media also the similar compliances will be imposed. Okay, and if there is no compliance, what will happen? Intermediary will lose its safe harbor from user content, will be liable to punishment under the IT Act or the IPC. Now what is this word safe harbor all about? Safe harbor is all about, now guys understand that this safe harbor, there is a small concept behind this thing. So let me tell you this concept. So basically when we talk about the safe harbor laws, when we talk about the safe harbor laws, okay, so the many countries provide the safe harbor to the IT social media intermediaries. What's the safe harbor? Suppose there is an there is a kind of a post, there is a photo, there is a video that is spreading onto the Facebook. Now the Facebook will not be held responsible for that particular content directly. You will not go to the Mark Zuckerberg and arrest the Mark Zuckerberg that okay, on your platform this post or this video was viral. So these companies cannot be held for liable for the content which is on there. That is the safe harbor. That is the safe harbor. Now you understand, in India the safe harbor is provided under the section 79 of the IT Act. Okay, now if they want to claim this safe harbor immunity, all these rules that we have discussed, they have to follow that. Okay, if you follow all the rules, now again I am telling guys, please listen very carefully. I'll use a different color pen. So if all these rules that we have discussed, they are followed by the social media intermediaries, OTT platforms, digital media, they will get the safe harbor protection. Okay, otherwise their safe harbor protection will be taken back. Okay, or they will be punished also. Okay, so this is the IT rules of 2021 that had come. Please download this pictographic and this article that I had provided and use it. Okay, and then the second one, that is the power that government it gets under the section 69A of the Information Act, IT Act 2000. Now what the section 69A is all about? So section 69A gives the power to the central government, state government, that they can issue the directions to intercept, monitor, decrypt any information that is transmitted, received or stored in a computer resource. So a computer resource, any information stored, transmitting, received, they can issue that okay, they can issue that particular information can be taken out or they can intercept that. Now on what grounds the section 69A can be exercised? Into the interest of the sovereignty or the integrity of India, defense of India, security, friendly relation with foreign states, public order, okay, or for preventing incitement of the commission of an offense, for investigating any offense. So the government can regulate, government can go for surveillance, government can decrypt, intercept any information. Okay, so by using these two, that is the section 69A of IT Act as well as the IT rules, that is the IT rules 2021, such videos have been taken down. Okay, so now understand that these two sections, section 69A and IT rules 2021, many times they come into the news. A few days back there was a Twitter controversy that was going on. Before that there was a controversy with the Facebook that was going on. So once in every few months these two sections come repeatedly into the news. So therefore you should know about it. Fine. So that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Okay, now this particular article, let's first of all read the heading what it says and then we'll understand this article. OBCs, OBCs, fine, not on the central list for the just a minute. OBCs not on central list can apply under the EWS for the union government post, DOPT. So the other backward classes, when we talk about the other backward classes, there is the controversy which is going on for so many of the days, that is the reservation issue, Now let me tell you first of all some of the basic information first, and then I'll be going in this particular article. By the way, this article will be important for GS paper number 2 issues of polity. This article will be important for GS paper number 2 polity. So basically, guys, understand this thing, that there are two types of OBCs list. There is a state OBC list, there is a state of OBC list, and then there is a central OBC list. Now, you know this particular thing, that many of the government examinations are happening, they are being conducted by the state government, and many other examinations are being conducted by the central government. For example, UPSC. For example, UPSC. So, UPSC is conducting the CSE, Civil Services Exam. Civil Services Exam. So, this is a central level exam. Now, in this exam, if a candidate wants to get the OBC reservation, then that particular candidate's caste should be included into the central list of the OBC. Suppose there is a person belonging from XYZ caste. Now this particular caste is mentioned, and this particular person, suppose this is a just a minute. Suppose there is this person's caste is XYZ caste. This particular person comes from, let's say, the state of Rajasthan. This particular person comes from the state of Rajasthan. Now XYZ caste is, let's say, mentioned into the Rajasthan's OBC list. So if there is an examination which is being conducted by the Rajasthan government, this person will get the OBC reservation. Fine. Why? Because this person's caste is mentioned into the Rajasthan's OBC list. However, if this particular XYZ caste is not there into the central government's OBC list, and if the UPSC exam is being conducted, this particular person cannot claim the OBC reservation. So what I have explained to you, that there is a state list of OBCs and then there is a central list of OBC. Okay. Now this is one concept. One more concept I want to tell you here is that EWS, economically weaker section reservation. Okay, so as if I tell you, before the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act, what was the status? So we give reservation. OBCs, they are given the 27% reservation. Scheduled caste, they are given 15% reservation. Scheduled tribe are given the 7.5% reservation. In total, 49.5% reservation was being given. Okay, and it was provided by the Supreme Court in 1992 in the Indira Sahani case, that the maximum reservation can be 50%, not beyond that. But then what happened? Government came out with the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act and provided additional 10% reservation for the economically weaker section. And total reservation became 59.5%. Okay. Now when this EWS, economically weaker section reservation, is given, it's given to the community who are not OBC, not SC, not ST, other communities. Okay, mainly the people who are from the general classes, they can claim this 10% additional reservation that is given. Now what is happening? Government is investigating this viability of the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Its constitutionality is being discussed into the Supreme Court right now. Why? Because there are the multiple challenges that has come. Number one challenge that has come is that you had went against the Indira Sahani judgment of 1992. You are now giving the reservation of more than 50%. Second is that in this EWS reservation, OBCs, SCs and STs are not being covered. So it is a kind of a discrimination against them. Now central government has provided their counter argument. Central government says that we are not giving this to these communities because already they have been given the reservation. So for example, 27, 15, 7.5%, already they have been given reservation. So therefore they are not being covered here into this EWS reservation. Okay, this is the entire background that is going on. So first of all, you should know this background. Now let's come to this particular article. So basically the DOPT, okay, that is Department of Department of Personnel and Training, they have provided this particular thing, that OBCs who are not on the central list can apply under the EWS, economically weaker section reservation, for the union government post. Okay, so now what they have provided, they had simply provided that if an OBC let's say if a person, this particular person belongs to the OBC, but this particular person's OBC status is given under the state list. Now this particular person can apply at the center level under the EWS reservation also. Is it clear or not? So earlier we have seen this thing that the OBCs, they were not given the benefit under the EWS, but one type of OBCs now have been extended the reservation benefit under the EWS. Which type of OBCs? Those OBCs who are not onto the central list. Okay, so if XYZ community is not onto the central list and they want to claim the reservation under the UPSC, then they can claim it under the EWS category. Okay, so you can read it also. People belonging to the other backward classes communities in the state list but not in the central list will be eligible to apply for the post and services of the government of India under the EWS quota criteria, provided they fulfill all other requirement. Okay, so in order to get EWS reservation also, certain income criteria is there, asset criteria is there, that you should fulfill. Okay, so I told you that all this particular team comes at a time when the Constitutional Bench of Supreme Court is hearing the constitutionality of the EWS quota, that is the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Moreover, DOPT has also clarified one more thing. They have provided this particular thing that EWS vacancies for a particular recruitment year cannot be carried over to the next year. What it means? It means that, for example, in a particular service there was 100 seat there was 100 positions that were reserved for the EWS category. Suppose this particular year only 80 seats have been fulfilled, 20 seats are left. These 20 seats will not be carried into the next year's reservation. Okay, it will not happen that, okay, in the next year if there are 100 EWS seats are there, then you'll add the 20 of the last year also and it will become 120. No, this will not happen. So the seats under the EWS which have not been fulfilled into the present year, they cannot be carried in the next year. That has happened. Okay, now you see this particular thing, that actually understand, you don't need to go too much into the detail in these kind of things. Just as the EWS controversy is going on, this concept that we discussed, okay, these the starting 4 lines, okay, that is the thing you need to focus more upon. More technicalities, okay, a lot more nitty-gritties are actually not needed for the sake of your examination. Okay, now moving to the next article. Home and abroad. Okay, now what this article is talking about, this article is giving a kind of a snapshot about the Minister of External Affairs address at the United Nations General Assembly 77th session. Okay, so just a snapshot that, okay, what happened, what he said, what were the priorities that were highlighted, it's being given. So let's read it, but you don't need to go and make special notes of this particular article. So I tell you that when you should take notes for sure and when you should not go too much into the detail, so that you can understand that what is the requirement and what is the demand of this exam. Fine. So what has happened recently, just a minute, recently at the United Nations General Assembly, Minister of External Affairs have addressed the UN, and it has been provided that right now there are the immediate shocks that the world is facing. What are the immediate shocks? The Ukraine war, it has disrupted the supply chains, then the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, terrorism. These are the immediate shocks that the world is facing. Now, when we talk about the Minister of External Affairs, Minister of External Affairs has delivered a very matured kind of address. Our MEA did not basically did not use any kind of negative comments for any particular country. For example, when we talk about the Pakistan, Pakistan made many direct references to India, okay, but we did not made any direct reference to Pakistan. This is a diplomacy that India has used, and this is very good thing. Now, at the same time, however, MEA has criticized the China for politicizing and blocking the UN Security Council terrorist designation. Now, if you follow the newspaper analysis, we have seen few days back that there were the proposals for certain terrorists that they should be declared as the international terrorist. Those proposals were blocked by the China in the UNSC. So, India had said that this is not a good thing. Terrorism is something which plagues the entire humanity, and you should not play politics on that particular matter. Now, at the same time, guys, you might be knowing that few days back when the prime minister visited the Uzbekistan, okay, for the SCO. Their prime minister had personally said to the Russia that the era of the war is over and you should wind up that war that is going on. It was into the context of Russia-Ukraine war that is going on. So what happened? The Minister of External Affairs has continued the same kind of line. Now the MEA did not criticize Russia, okay, that you are wrong, or had not supported the USA also for directly, but it has said that India always stands for the peace, respect for the UN Charter, dialogue and diplomacy, okay, and right now as the war is going on, it is leading to escalating cost of food, fuel and fertilizer. So what happened? Again, a very classic diplomacy has been used by India, where a kind of a very clear message but without targeting a country has been done. This is a very good one. Then at the same time, it has been provided that the global stakeholders needs to consider the conflict of Ukraine as how it is leading to many of the cost. For example, because of the Ukraine crisis, US-EU led sanctions that are happening. Now you see this particular thing, that there is on one hand Russia, on another hand there is Ukraine. Now the USA and the EU, they are imposing the sanctions onto the Russia. Now already the supply chains are disturbed because of the Russia-Ukraine war is going on, and now when these additional sanctions are being imposed, it will further bring more inflation into the world, okay, it will bring more economic problems, it will lead to economic fragmentation, inflation. So these kind of things also needed to be understood. At the same time, guys, though India is talking about peace, India is talking about cooperation and harmony, but few days back the Putin, okay, so basically the Putin, in a speech, he said this particular thing, that we will use all the weapons including the nuclear weapons if we have to stop the Ukraine. So this is something which is being done by the Russia, which is not very much mature. Now the India has also talked about that we are now moving towards the new India. So if you remember, we have seen this particular thing in our newspaper analysis also, that at this particular Independence Day, 15th August, India has taken, or the Prime Minister has talked about the Panch Pran. The Prime Minister has talked about the Panch Pran. The Panch Pran means the 5 targets that were taken by the India. We have discussed it. So the Panch Prans have been discussed, not the Panch Prans have been discussed. One of the idea of the Panch Pran, that is to make India a developed nation by 2047, that has been specifically emphasized there. Okay. Moreover, it has been said that India wants to become a world leader, regional leader, and in that particular capacity, India also has talked about the United Nations Security Council reforms also. Now, in the past 2 days, we have seen this particular article on the UNSC reforms. Yesterday also I had given you an entire notes on the UNSC reforms. On Saturday, we have also discussed the UNSC reforms. So, the Minister of External Affairs has talked about the UNSC reforms and has provided that there is injustice that has been done to the Global South. Okay. So, Global South, these are majorly the developing countries. Okay. So, injustice has been done. Why? Because they have not been given the representation. So, the Global North's representation is more there. So you know that, for example, you have the US, okay, you have US, you have UK, you have France, you have Russia. All these are the countries of the Global North. So they have been given more proportion. At the same time, India will host the G20, okay, and as India will host the G20, India will play the role of a global uniter. India will play the role of a bridge which will unite the world that has been divided. So this is the role that India is going to play. Okay, so that's all about, guys, the snapshot of this visit that has been done into the UNGA. So that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Pitching India as a signature destination. Okay, so this is a very, very good article on the topic of tourism. Okay, so we'll see it with respect to GS paper number 3, sectors of Indian economy. Sectors of Indian economy, and when we talk about the sectors of Indian economy, the service sector is there, and within the service sector, the tourism sector will come. Within the service sector, the tourism sector will come. Okay, so what this article is talking about, the tourism potential. Now see, today, that is the September 27, it's celebrated as the World Tourism Day. Okay, and on the World Tourism Day, this article is talking about the Dharamshala Declaration. Dharamshala Declaration. Now, the Dharamshala Declaration 2022 it was recently released. And what this Dharamshala Declaration is all about, it's about promoting the tourism sector of India. So tourism sector can be the major engine in India's GDP. So the Dharamshala Declaration, it target is number one, the Dharamshala Declaration provides this thing that tourism will be recovered to pre-pandemic level by 2024. You know this thing that with the coming of pandemic, tourism sector got disturbed a lot. And second target under the Dharamshala Declaration is that $250 billion contribution to the GDP by 2030 will be made by the tourism sector. So we'll promote our tourism sector in such a way that it contributes around $250 billion to our GDP. Third, India will be the world leader in tourism by 2047. So 2047, when India will become a 100-year-old democracy, okay, we will become the world leader into the tourism. Okay. Now this Dharamshala Declaration also talks about that the long-term revenue of $1 trillion by 27 is to be achieved by the tourism sector. So by 2047, what should be the economic contribution of tourism? $1 trillion. Okay. Now please remember these particular targets. If a question onto the tourism sector is coming, please directly use the Dharamshala Declaration of 2022 that recently we have adopted. Very, very important point. Now, the Dharamshala Declaration, it talks about the India's role in contribution towards the global tourism. Now see this thing. India is also sending a large many tourism to all the world countries, okay, and therefore the Indian tourist becomes a very important for those countries. Indian tourists, they bring a lot of economic value. Fine. At the same time, the Dharamshala Declaration has focused on promoting the domestic tourism. Now, when we talk about the domestic tourism, we should nudge people to travel more domestically. Okay, so you should travel to other locations, other states. Now, not only Goa is important. Apart from the Goa, other states, for example, go to the northeast, go to the deep south, go to the north, go to the east, go to the west. So we need to promote the domestic tourism also, so that we know about our own culture. Why we need to promote the domestic tourism? So that we know about our nature, our natural assets, about our cultural assets, about our spiritual beauty, okay, and so that we can realize the Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat, we can have an understanding of our own nation. Moreover, it will also create the economic opportunities for the local people where you are visiting. That's the thing. Now, basically the tourism ministry, it's also working with the Ministry of External Affairs and the 20 Indian missions, okay, the Indian embassies, Indian missions, they have been identified. They will promote the India as a tourist destination in those countries. For example, Germany is there, let's say Germany is there, US is there. So they'll advertise the brand of Indian tourism there. So the Ministry of Tourism is cooperating with the Ministry of External Affairs on this particular line. Then, when we talk about the tourism, okay, we need to have some rethinking and we need to reimagine tourism now, okay, into the times of the COVID-19 pandemic that has happened. So what the article talks about? Now, first of all, the COVID-19 impacted the tourism sector most severely. It was the most affected kind of sector because of the lockdown that was going on. Now, government provided the emergency credit line guarantee scheme to the tourist sector, and the size of this particular scheme has recently been enhanced to 5 lakh crore rupees. Now, what is this emergency credit line guarantee scheme? The hotels, okay, for example, hotels, restaurant, marriage halls, fine, they can take the credit, they can take the loan from the banks and government will provide the guarantee. Collateral is not needed, government will provide the guarantee. That is the emergency credit line guarantee scheme that started. Now, when we talk about the tourism, we need to reset and we need to rethink the way the tourism is to be taken in India. Now, understand that a draft National Tourism Policy 2022 has come. Okay, and this draft National Tourism Policy 2022, it talks about that we need to support the tourism industries, tourism support functions, okay, tourism subsectors, okay. Moreover, we also need to bring the sustainable, responsible and inclusive tourism in India. See, we are going to the forest, we are going to the ecologically fragile zones, we are going to the mountains, but our tourism is having some disastrous carbon footprint, okay. We are not respecting the fragile ecology. So we need to go for the sustainable, responsible and inclusive tourism, okay. And National Green Tourism Mission has also been started. okay, so that the carbon footprint, so that the ecological fragile ecology should be respected. Now when we talk about India, from Gautam to Gandhi, from Gautam Buddha to Gandhi. Now this is the phrase that has been used into the article. So from Gautam Buddha to Gandhi, India has always spoken about inherent need to live in harmony with the nature. Okay, so that particular thing will now also be focused. Okay, now moving on, basically the national tourism policy, it also provides that the digitalization, innovation, technology, fine, through the national digital tourism mission will be promoted. Okay, so for example, digitization is needed into the tourism, for example, for hotel bookings, for the bookings of the other transportation mediums. Okay, railway bookings are already online, but there are many other kind of things also. For example, you are taking a ferry, you are taking a boat ride, you are taking the cable car ride, everything needs to be digitally, it should be booked. Okay, so digital bookings and other such kind of a digital integration will be also be done for the tourism. Okay, so the national tourism policy specifically talks on this particular thing, that is the digitalization. So national digital tourism mission is also being started. Now guys, it has been provided that the private sector participation through PPP model also needs to be done into the tourism. So public private partnership can be there. For example, tourism circuits can be developed by both private and government, recreational facilities can be provided, accommodation can be provided, transportation can be provided. So public private partnership should be there. Now this particular year we will also be, for actually 2023, will also be holding the presidency of the G20, and the Atithi Devo Bhava should be reflected as we are hosting the G20 countries. So the delegates of the 19 countries and European Union, in total 20 countries, when they'll come, we need to show them the dedication, India's rich cultural tourism. Okay, we need to show that particular thing, and India should put forward its tourism potential onto the global stage. Now moreover, one more thing, that we also want to change some of the, we also should change some of the things into the tourism. For example, what we should do, we need to bring the visa reforms, ease of travel is to be brought, travel friendly and improved immigration facilities at the airports need to be brought. Okay, so this is something that we need to bring, these are the reforms that we need to bring into the tourism sector. Now here there are some very important data that has been given. Now by 2030, India, it is estimated that India will grow at 7.7 to 9%. India's growth will be around 7 to 9% by 2030. That will be the compound annual growth rate. Okay, and by that particular time, $250 billion in GDP might come from the tourism. 140 million jobs will be developed into the tourism sector. $56 billion in foreign exchange earnings will come because of the tourism. 25 million foreign travelers, foreign arrivals will be there. Okay, so the tourism happens to be a very important game changer, very important key changer. So therefore, this particular sector is needed to be addressed very, very properly and with a lot of care, with a lot of caution. Okay, so that's all guys about this particular article, a very good article. And now we'll move to the next article. Putting power back in the hands of people. Now this article we'll see with respect to the GS paper number 2, challenges related to democracy, challenges to democracy. Okay, challenges to democracy. Now see what the article is talking about. Article says this thing, that right now the democracy is facing a lot of challenges around the world. We find this particular thing, that since the democracies became a mainstream political system after the World War II, still the racial genocides have happened throughout the history. Fine, hunger has been escalated. There are the diseases in Africa. Underdeveloped countries, they are facing many of the challenges. Okay, populism. What is populism? Populism is to attract the people just for the vote banks. Growing economic discrimination, overpopulation, environmental degradation, all these challenges are there, and the democracies are not able to handle these challenges. So therefore, what's happening? The democracies around the world are getting threatened. This is the issue that's going on. Now the article says this particular thing, that people always share hope for a better world. They want that they want this particular thing, that the state repression should not be there. Fine, we want that the people's needs should be taken care of, justices needs to be brought. So always people expect for a better world. Now here there is a there is a Slavoj Zizek, the European philosopher. What he says that we are the one we are waiting for. So it simply means that we are waiting for justice, we are waiting for development, but nobody else will bring that development. We are the one who ourselves will bring the development. Okay. Now the article says this particular thing, that right now there is the pressure onto the government that's existing. Okay, but the pressure will always grow. The pressure will always grow. Now the pressure that is on there on the government cannot justify the oppression of the people. Government cannot justify the suppression of the people. Government cannot ignore the care of the people simply because the pressure is there onto the government. It will always increase. Okay. We need to ask ourselves that what is it that brought us to this situation where people who are oppressed, people who have no employment, people who are suffering, people who are deeply voting for further hellishness upon themselves. Why this kind of thing is happening? So the author says this thing, that the democracy is right now more into the crisis than the ever before. Right now there is a centralization of the power that is going on. Fine. The foreign policies define the public opinions. The medias have become centralized. Medias have become biased. Fine. So the media right now, the corporate sector is controlling the economy. Crony capitalism is going on. Okay. This is something that is happening. So right now the world democracies are under threat. Okay. There is the threatening world order that's emerging. Now it has been said this thing, that the individual rights have been reduced. There are the polarities that are coming. Okay, the polarities that are coming, divisions that are coming, the conflicts that are coming. There is even a fear of nuclear tragedy that will happen. Okay, a coronavirus pandemic, ecological disasters, all these particular things are happening. So the democracies are in a decline, and right now power is in the hand of the people themselves, that they need to take some of the meaningful decisions so that the democratic decline can be stopped. So this is something that has been provided. Now this particular article is written more in a literary kind of a manner. Okay, so that is something fine. So just a brief idea has been given. Now we'll move to the next article. Samarkand, a miniature of an emerging world. Now this article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2 international relation. GS paper number 2 international relation. Now what the article talks about? Article talks about the recent SCO meet that was held in the Uzbekistan. SCO meet that was held into the Uzbekistan, within the Uzbekistan, in the Samarkand that happened. Okay. So basically it has been said that today will assess through the SCO that what's the global world order that is prevailing. So number one, it being said that the China is right now vulnerable. Okay. So China has signed a deal with the Russia. China has signed a deal with the Russia, and as a part of this particular deal, China had said that China will support Russia on the Ukraine, and in return Russia should support the China for the Taiwan. Now when we talk about the Taiwan, China says this particular thing, that Taiwan is not an independent nation, rather the Taiwan is a part of China. That is the one China principle of China. So China asks Russia that you support us on Taiwan and will support you against the Ukraine war that is going on. So this is the deal that the China has signed. So China right now has made up this particular mind that the Russia is going to be the major partner of the China. The USA is not going to be the partner. Okay. So right now the USA has chosen the side towards the democratic nations. Okay. So China is gaining more and more democratic countries in the favor. The USA is gaining more and more democratic countries into the favor, and China is going near to the Russia. Now recently we have seen this issue in our newspaper also, that USA has provided the Pakistan that their air force will be refitted. Fine, the assistance for the Pakistani Air Force is being provided by the USA. Why USA is doing this thing? So that the Pakistan doesn't goes near to the China and Pakistan favors the USA. That is something that's going on. Now, when we talk about India, India has the biggest adversaries on the table. In the SCO, there was a Pakistan, there was China that was there. Now India has the special relations with the Russia. Okay, and India wants that the hostilities needs to be removed and the normalization should come. Now India has also told to the Russia here in this particular SCO summit that was going on, that the war must stop right now. The world has faced a lot of challenges right now. The India wants the support of Russia also, India wants the support of the USA also, but at the same time India wants to take the high stand on the issues that are also going on. That is something that's going on. Now India has talked in this particular SCO meet, the oil crisis that is going into the world. Okay, oil crisis, increasing food scarcity, fine, disruption in the supply chains that had happened. Okay, so therefore the war has to stop in order to resolve all these particular challenges that are increasing. So the India's real business should have been with the China. Now see this thing, that into the past China has violated every bilateral agreement. China has occupied the territories, illegal territories around the line of actual control. The Xi Jinping, its conduct is not justice oriented. This is something that has happened. Fine. So right now India's real business is to deal with these kind of a new challenges. That is the India's priorities into the present times. Okay. Now India at the same time has to say about the Pakistan also. Sorry. Now when we talk about the India has to say about Pakistan also. Fine. Now the SEO meet happened, the Pakistan was also present there. Now understand that point of a time India wanted to raise the grievances that it has with the Pakistan, because Pakistan is perpetuating a lot of terrorism, but India adopt a kind of a classic diplomacy, and India did not directly challenge the Pakistan or did not use any kind of a references against the Pakistan. But actually Pakistan is the one who is playing a victim card. Pakistan is saying that okay, India has done wrong by changing the status of Article 317 to the Jammu and Kashmir, and the Kashmir problem has also taken with the Chinese president, and the China has assured the Pakistan that the China will support the Pakistan for the Kashmir issue that is going on. Now on the SEO, the India made only one request with the Pakistan, that the Pakistan should be provided, the Pakistan should provide India the land access to Afghanistan. So we want to provide the humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. We want to reach to the Afghanistan. So the land access should be provided by Pakistan. This was the only expectation that India laid. Now, India's position at the summit also turned, because before the summit, India did not outrightly condemn the Russia because of the war. But now we have questioned the Russia onto the continuation of war that has happened. Okay. And right now India has come in between towards both the sides. So the world is divided on both the sides, and India is in between, where India is now trying to maintain a balance, but India has questioned the Russia also. Okay. So when we talk about the Samarkand summit that happened, it presented a world in miniature. All the challenges that are there onto the world, they were all those countries representing these challenges were present, major countries, and this particular outcome is there. Fine. So that's all guys about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next one. Live streaming online Rti portal SC, Supreme Court takes big steps on transparency. Now this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2 judicial reforms. GS paper number 2 judicial reforms. Now guys, understand that into the past Supreme Court has done many of the developments that have happened. This particular thing will promote the transparency into the Supreme Court, the highest court of our country. So basically what has happened, the Chief Justice of India has assured that a dedicated platform is being planned to live stream the Supreme Court proceedings. So basically what happened into the past, in order to make the proceedings of the Supreme Court more transparent and more accessible to the people, it was asked that a live streaming should happen. And now the Supreme Court had said that yes, that will be started, and even a platform is being prepared. Now in the last 7 years, we find this particular thing, that many steps have been taken by the Supreme Court to promote the transparency. Basically, in 2015, there was a kind of a low point that come actually. What was happened? So there was a 99th Constitutional Amendment Act that we passed, and we brought the National Judicial Appointment Commission. National Judicial Appointment Commission. Now the National Judicial Appointment Commission was given the responsibility for the appointment of the Supreme Court judges, High Court judges, and the transfer of the High Court judges. The responsibility was given to the NJAC. Supreme Court said that the new National Judicial Appointment Commission, it is unconstitutional because the power of the Supreme Court has been diluted. Now this particular thing was criticized. It was said that the Supreme Court is trying to get the power in its own hands. But after this 2015, what has happened? Supreme Court has taken many kind of reforms for which we need to appreciate the Supreme Court. First of all, what happened? Just after this particular judgment where the NJAC was struck down, the Supreme Court invited the public opinion that how the collegium system can be improved. How the collegium system can be improved. This is something that was provided. After that, what happened? This was one reform. Second reform that came was that actually guys, in 2018, there was an incident that happened. That is some of the Supreme Court judges, they said this thing, that the Chief Justices and many other Supreme Court, the Chief Justices particularly, are allocating the sensitive cases selectively. Okay, now there are certain sensitive cases in which the government is a major stakeholder. So those cases are being given to those benches which are more favorable to the governments. So selective allocation of the cases is happening into the Supreme Court. This allegation was made in 2018. Okay, now what happened, the Supreme Court after this particular thing introduced the subject wise roster for the allocation of cases. Now what's this subject wise roster? So Supreme Court said that okay, certain subjects were listed, that okay, these cases will go to this kind of a bench. This thing was made into the public domain so that the biasness, favoritism in allocating the cases don't happen into the Supreme Court. This was the next reform that happened. Okay, and then guys, now what has happened, Supreme Court is saying that the live streaming will happen. Okay, the RTI portal will be also be established. Now what's the RTI portal? Basically guys, if you want to make any request, any RTI, okay, any RTI is to be made to the Supreme Court, for that particular thing a dedicated portal will be established so that the information about the working of the Supreme Court can be done. Now when we talk about the RTI, for the RTI there is one major development that has happened in 2019. Now understand this particular thing, that before 2019 it was said by the Supreme Court that the Chief Justice of India's office will not come under the RTI Act. Okay, but in 2019 finally what happened, the Supreme Court provided this particular thing, that the Chief Justice of India is also a public authority, and therefore after 2019 CJI's office also came in the RTI, and now the RTI portal is being established. And now what's happening, the RTI portal is being established. So this is something that has happened. So basically three type of reforms in nutshell. Okay, you don't need to go into the timeline that okay, on that year that happened, in that year that happened. You just need to understand that actually three are the biggest reforms that had come. Number one, live streaming. Second, two, RTI portal, and the third is to further enhance the transparency, the Supreme Court has invited the public comments after it struck the NJAC. All these developments have happened. So guys, that is all about this particular article. Okay, I hope that you have understood it. Okay, so with this we come to an end to the today's newspaper analysis. Guys, now we'll be meeting tomorrow. Till then, please take care of yourselves, and please do like the video if you have liked the video. Okay, so that is all for today from my sides. Thank you so much. Now we'll be meeting tomorrow. Please take care of yourselves. Thank you so much.